The fluorescent lights of the examination room felt too bright, too clinical, too much like the moment your entire existence splits into before and after. Dr. Patterson stood with his hand on the phone, his dark eyes fixed on me with an expression I had seen before in my nursing career but never expected to be on the receiving end of. Pity mixed with anger. Concern wrapped in urgency. "Mrs. Reynolds, I need you to call the police," he said, each word measured and heavy. "Right now." My hands started shaking. I looked at Derek sitting in his wheelchair, and for the first time in 4 years, I saw something in his face that made my blood run cold. Not confusion. Not fear. Guilt. "I don't understand," I whispered, though part of me was beginning to understand. That part of me I had silenced for months, maybe years. The part that noticed things that didn't add up. Dr. Patterson moved between me and Derek. "Your husband is not paralyzed, Mrs. Reynolds. He has full motor function and sensation in his lower body. The tests I just ran prove it conclusively." The room tilted. I grabbed the counter to steady myself. 4 years. 4 years of my life flashed before me in that moment. 4 years of bathing him, feeding him, moving him, sacrificing everything while he sat in that chair and watched me destroy myself for a lie. "That's insane," Derek said, but his voice cracked. "The doctor is wrong. I can't feel anything. I can't move. Mr. Reynolds, I stimulated 17 different nerve clusters in your legs during this exam. You flinched, pulled away, and at one point nearly kicked me. Your muscle tone is far too strong for someone who has been paralyzed for 4 years. Your reflexes are normal, not hyperactive as they would be with true spinal injury." Dr. Patterson's voice was sharp now, angry. "You have been lying to your wife, defrauding insurance companies, and I suspect much more." I couldn't breathe. The walls seemed to close in. My beautiful African-American face, the one Derek used to say he loved, stared back at me from the mirror on the wall. I looked hollow, exhausted, years older than my 32 years. I had given him everything. "Call the police, Mrs. Reynolds," Dr. Patterson repeated, holding out his own phone. "I'll call hospital security. This man is not leaving this room until law enforcement arrives." Derek's mask slipped completely then. No more pretense of confusion. His jaw clenched, his eyes narrowed. "Natasha, let me explain." "Don't." The word came out like broken glass. "Don't you dare speak to me." My hand trembled as I took Dr. Patterson's phone and dialed 911. As I told the operator what was happening, my mind raced backward through 4 years of hell, searching for the moment I could have known. The moment I should have known. But let me start at the beginning, because the real horror wasn't just in this moment of discovery. It was in every single day I had lived in service to a lie. 4 years earlier, on a Tuesday morning in September, I woke up to 17 missed calls. My phone had been on silent overnight. The moment I saw all those calls from Derek's work, his brother, the hospital, my stomach dropped. I was a registered nurse working the overnight shift at County General. Derek worked as a construction supervisor for Bennett Development. We had been married 3 years, together for 6. We were planning to start trying for a baby that month. I had just taken a pregnancy test the night before. Negative, but we had time. We were young, healthy, in love. Or so I thought. The hospital receptionist told me Derek was in surgery. Spinal injury from a fall at the construction site. I drove there in my green scrubs, breaking every speed limit, praying to God to let him be okay. I would do anything I promised. Anything. Be careful what you promise. Dr. Kim met me in the surgical waiting room. "Mrs. Reynolds, your husband sustained a severe injury when scaffolding collapsed. He fell approximately 20 feet and landed on construction materials. The impact was primarily to his lower spine, T12L1 region. I knew enough from my training to feel my hope drain away. Is he paralyzed? We won't know the full extent until he wakes and we can assess, but the damage is significant. I'm very sorry." Derek woke up 3 hours later. I was holding his hand. His eyes opened, found mine, and tears started streaming down his face. "I can't feel my legs," he whispered. "Natasha, I can't feel anything." My heart shattered into pieces I would spend years trying to put back together. I kissed his forehead, stroked his hair, promised him we would get through this together. "We'll figure it out," I said, wearing my red cardigan, the one he said made me look beautiful. "Whatever it takes." The test confirmed it. Complete paralysis from the waist down. No sensation, no movement. The doctors said sometimes feeling returned, sometimes it didn't. We would need physical therapy, adaptive equipment, home modifications. Our second-floor apartment would no longer work. I would need to leave my job to care for him full-time, at least initially. My sister Imani came to the hospital that first week. She wore a maroon dress and carried flowers. Her face was tight with concern. Tasha, this is horrible. But you can't quit your job. Let's find home care, nursing support. You just got that promotion. He needs me, I said. I'm his wife. I can take care of him. You're a nurse, not a miracle worker. You need help. But I didn't want help. I wanted to prove my love was strong enough to carry us through anything. I wanted to be the wife who stood by her husband no matter what. Noble, right? Stupid. We moved into a ground floor apartment. I quit my job. Insurance covered some things but not everything. Definitely not the special bed, not the bathroom modifications, not the shower chair, not any of the 100 small things that added up to thousands of dollars. My savings account bled out slowly then quickly. Derek came home after 6 weeks in rehab. The therapist taught me how to move him, how to prevent bed sores, how to help with every bodily function. My nursing background helped, but nothing prepares you for the intimacy of caring for your spouse as a patient. Our friends visited at first, then less, then not at all. I understood. It was uncomfortable for them. Derek became withdrawn, sometimes angry. I told myself it was depression, which was normal for spinal injury patients. I gave up my entire life. My career, my social life, my hobbies. Everything became about Derek. Physical therapy exercises 3 times daily. Meal preparation. Medication management. Doctor appointments. Insurance battles. Every single day the same exhausting routine. At night, I would collapse into bed next to him, careful not to jostle the wheelchair beside us and stare at the ceiling. Our intimate life was gone. He said he couldn't feel anything, couldn't perform. I told him it didn't matter, that I loved him regardless. I meant it then. The first year was the hardest. Learning the new normal. Grieving the life we had planned. By the second year, I had become a machine. Efficient, capable, numb. By the third year, I stopped looking in mirrors because I couldn't recognize the woman staring back. Thin, exhausted, gray-skinned despite my beautiful brown complexion. My hair, which I used to wear in natural curls, stayed pulled back in a tight bun. No makeup. No pretty clothes, just practical ones. What was the point? Derek never said thank you. Not once in 4 years. At first I thought he was depressed. Then I thought maybe he felt guilty. Eventually I stopped thinking about it at all. This was just my life now. But there were moments, small moments that didn't fit. Once I came home from the grocery store and could have sworn the wheelchair was in a different position than I left it. Derek said I was misremembering. Another time I noticed his calf muscles looked firmer than they should after 3 years without use. The physical therapist said some patients maintain muscle tone better than others. Phone calls where he would quickly hang up when I entered the room. Texts that he deleted immediately. Hotel charges on our credit card that he claimed were fraudulent, probably our card number stolen. A perfume smell on his shirt collar one Tuesday afternoon. Not my perfume. He said maybe it was from the physical therapist. I ignored all of it. Or rather, I told myself I was being paranoid, untrusting, crazy even. My sister Imani would hint that something felt off, but I would shut her down. I was a good wife. Good wives didn't spy on their paralyzed husbands. God, I was such a fool. But the biggest red flag came 6 months before that doctor's appointment. I saw a woman leaving our apartment building at 2 p.m. on a Wednesday. She wore a blue dress and carried a large purse. She looked confident, styled, everything I no longer was. I had been at the pharmacy picking up Derek's medications, a trip that usually took an hour. Something made me take note of her face. Something made me uncomfortable. But Derek was asleep when I got home, just as he should have been. I was seeing things, imagining things. The stress was making me paranoid. I pushed it away. Pushed down my instincts. Silenced the voice that said something was very, very wrong. Until that Tuesday in August, 4 years after the accident, when we had Derek's annual checkup. Our regular doctor had retired, so we saw Dr. Patterson for the first time. He was thorough. Professional. He did tests our previous doctor never bothered with. And he found the truth. Now, standing in that examination room, listening to Derek's pathetic attempts to explain while we waited for the police, all those small moments crashed over me like a wave. I had known. On some level I had known. Officers are on their way, Dr. Patterson said, hanging up his desk phone after calling hospital security. Mr. Reynolds, I suggest you remain very still. Derek looked at me, really looked at me, and I saw calculation in his eyes. He was trying to figure out how to manipulate me even now. 4 years of practice had taught him exactly how I responded to his needs. Natasha, please. Let me explain everything. This isn't what you think. Save it for the police, I said, surprised by how steady my voice sounded when everything inside me was screaming. The woman in the mirror caught my eye again. She looked different now. Not broken anymore. Something had shifted in the last 10 minutes. Something fundamental. I had spent 4 years being crushed under the weight of a lie. 4 years giving everything to a man who deserved nothing. But that woman in the mirror, the one staring back at me with tears streaming down her face but fire in her eyes, she wasn't going to stay crushed. Derek had stolen 4 years of my life. But he wouldn't steal one more day. The construction site accident happened on September 18th, 4 years ago. I remember the date because we had made reservations that night at Rosario's, the Italian restaurant where Derek proposed. We were celebrating my promotion to charge nurse on the cardiac unit. I had worked so hard for that position. I never made it to dinner. Derek's brother, Tony, was the one who finally reached me around 10 a.m. I had just finished my overnight shift and was in the shower when his 5th call came through. Natasha, Derek's been hurt. He's at Memorial Hospital. It's bad. You need to come now. The drive from our apartment to Memorial took 12 minutes. 12 minutes where I cycled through every possible scenario, each one worse than the last. I wore my green scrubs still, my hair wet and pulled into a ponytail. I didn't even think about changing. The emergency room receptionist recognized my hospital badge and let me through immediately. That's when I should have realized how serious it was. They don't break protocol unless it's life or death. Tony was in the surgical waiting room with 3 other men from Derek's crew. They all stood when I entered, their faces telling me everything before anyone spoke. What happened? I asked. Tony stepped forward. He was 2 years younger than Derek, same height, same build, but where Derek was always confident and smooth, Tony seemed uncertain now. The scaffolding collapsed on the Morrison project. Derek was up on the 2nd level. He fell. How far? 20 feet, maybe more. He landed on his back on some rebar and concrete blocks. My nursing training kicked in, overriding my fear. What injuries? Is he conscious? What did the paramedics say? He was conscious at the scene but in bad pain. Couldn't move his legs. They said spinal injury. Those 2 words stopped everything. Time, breath, hope. Spinal injury. In my years as a nurse, I had cared for enough spinal patients to know what that could mean. Paralysis. Lifelong disability. Complete dependence on others. But Derek was young, healthy, strong. He would beat the odds. He had to. Dr. Kim came out 40 minutes later, still in surgical scrubs. Mrs. Reynolds? Is he alive? The only question that mattered. Yes. The surgery went well. We've stabilized the spine with hardware. But there was significant damage to the spinal cord in the thoracolumbar region. We won't know the full extent of paralysis until he wakes and we can perform neurological assessments. Can I see him? He's in recovery. Another hour or so. I sat in that waiting room wearing my red cardigan over my scrubs, staring at medical posters about spine health. Tony brought me coffee. The crew members left one by one, promising to check in later. None of them ever did. Imani arrived 90 minutes later. She had driven from her job at the law firm downtown. My sister always knew when I needed her, even when I didn't call. Tasha. She wrapped her arms around me and I finally let myself cry. What do the doctors say? Spinal injury. They don't know how bad yet. He's going to be okay. Derek's tough. But I heard the uncertainty in her voice. Imani was logical, practical. She dealt in facts and evidence. The facts here weren't good. They let me see Derek around 2 p.m. He was still unconscious from anesthesia, intubated, monitors beeping steadily. I pulled a chair next to his bed and took his hand. His warm brown skin looked ashen under the fluorescent lights. I studied his face, memorizing it as if this might be the last moment of our old life together. His eyes opened at 5 p.m. confused at first, then focusing on me. He tried to speak around the breathing tube. The nurse came and removed it carefully. Natasha, he whispered, his voice raw. I'm here. I'm right here. My legs. I can't feel my legs. The neurologist came in 10 minutes later, a brisk woman named Dr. Patel. She performed a complete neurological exam while I stood back, my medical knowledge warring with my desperate hope. I knew what each test meant. I knew what every absent response indicated. Mr. Reynolds, you've sustained a severe spinal cord injury at the T12L1 level. Currently, you have no sensation or voluntary movement below that point. We'll continue to monitor, but I need you to understand the injury is significant. Will I walk again? Derek asked, tears streaming down his face. Dr. Patel hesitated. It's too early to say definitively. Some patients regain some function. Others don't. We'll start aggressive physical therapy once you're stable. For now, you need to focus on healing. After she left, Derek turned to me. Natasha, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Don't apologize. This isn't your fault. We'll get through this. How? How are we going to get through this? I can't walk. I can't feel anything. I'm useless. Stop. You're not useless. You're hurt, but you're alive. That's what matters. He cried for hours that night. I held him, made promises I believed I could keep. We would adapt. We would overcome. Love conquers all, right? The next weeks were a blur of medical consultations, insurance paperwork, and physical therapy assessments. Derek stayed in the hospital for 6 weeks total. 3 weeks in acute care, 3 in the rehabilitation unit. The hospital social worker, a kind woman named Patricia, sat down with us in week 2 to discuss life planning. That's what she called it. Life planning. Like we were choosing retirement homes, not figuring out how a 35-year-old man would manage being paralyzed. You'll need adaptive equipment, Patricia explained, showing us catalogs of wheelchairs, shower chairs, hospital beds. Insurance will cover some, but not everything. There are grants available, but the waiting lists are long. How much are we looking at? I asked. For the basics, probably 15 to 20,000. That doesn't include home modifications. You'll need ramps, wider doorways, bathroom renovations. I felt sick. Our savings had maybe $8,000. We had no equity in our apartment. My salary was decent, but not that decent. We'll figure it out, I said anyway. Derek just stared out the window. The physical therapists worked with him daily, teaching transfers from bed to chair, building upper body strength, trying to stimulate any possible nerve function. I attended every session, taking notes, learning techniques. Mrs. Reynolds, you're going to burn yourself out, one therapist warned. You need to maintain your own life too. But I had already decided. Derek needed me. I would leave my job at least temporarily. We would manage on his disability payments and our savings. Imani tried to talk me out of it. Tasha, you just got promoted. You've worked so hard. There are home health services, professional caregivers. He's my husband. I know, but you can't give up everything. What about your career? Your life? My life is with him. For better or worse, remember? She looked at me with such sadness. I just don't want you to lose yourself. I won't, I promised. I already had, I just didn't know it yet. We moved in November, 2 months after the accident. A ground floor apartment in a different neighborhood. Smaller, darker, but accessible. I spent a week modifying it with Tony's help. Grab bars in the bathroom. A ramp at the entrance. We couldn't afford the hospital bed yet, so I ordered one online that wouldn't arrive for a month. Derek came home on a Friday. The medical transport van pulled up at noon. 2 men helped transfer him into his wheelchair, then into the apartment. I had decorated a bit, trying to make it welcoming. Blue curtains in the living room. Fresh flowers on the table. Derek looked around with no expression. This is it then. It's temporary. Once you start getting better, we can find something nicer. He didn't respond. That first month home was brutal. Learning to manage everything without nurses and therapists around. I became expert at transfers, at preventing pressure sores, at the intimate details of bowel and bladder care. Derek hated every minute of it. I tried to preserve his dignity, but some things just can't be dignified. He became angry. At first I understood. He had every right to be angry at what happened to him. But the anger never seemed directed at the accident or fate. It was directed at me. You're doing it wrong. That hurts. I said I didn't want that for lunch. Why can't you do anything right? I absorbed it all. He was processing trauma. I needed to be patient. 3 months in, I realized we were going through money faster than expected. Medical supplies were expensive. Medications added up. The adaptive equipment we needed kept finding new ways to break. I applied for every grant, every program, every assistance option Patricia had mentioned. I also stopped buying things for myself. No new clothes. No makeup. No haircuts. Everything went to Derek's care. Imani noticed. Tasha, you look exhausted. When was the last time you did something for yourself? I don't need anything. Yes, you do. You need a break. You need self-care. I need to take care of my husband. She stopped pushing after that. But I saw her concern. I just couldn't address it. There was no room in my life for my own needs anymore. 6 months after the accident, Derek's disability payments started. Less than I expected, but something. Combined with our dwindling savings, we could survive. Barely. I applied for jobs I could do from home. Medical coding, chart review, anything to bring in extra money. but I could never commit to set hours. Derek's needs were unpredictable. Our friends stopped calling around month 8. I understood. What do you say to a couple dealing with paralysis? How do you maintain friendships when one of you can't leave the house easily? It was easier for everyone to just drift away. By the 1-year mark, my entire world had shrunk to our small apartment in Derek's care. I woke up at 6 a.m. to help him with morning routines. Physical therapy exercises, meals, medication, entertainment, more exercises, evening routine. Bed by 11 p.m. exhausted. Repeat. Every single day. I stopped recognizing myself. The woman who loved running 5 Burmese chats. The woman who read 3 books a month. The woman who laughed easily and dreamed of having children. She disappeared bit by bit until only the caregiver remained. And Derek never once thanked me. Year 2 started with a January snowstorm that trapped us in the apartment for 3 days. No physical therapy appointments. No grocery runs. Just Derek and me in 800 square feet of space, with nothing but time and resentment hanging between us. That was when I first realized I wasn't sure I loved him anymore. The thought hit me while I was transferring him from wheelchair to bed, his dead weight nearly pulling us both down. I caught us, steadied us, completed the transfer. And thought, I don't know if I even like you. The guilt almost killed me. What kind of person stops loving their paralyzed spouse? What kind of monster feels anger instead of compassion? I pushed the feelings down deep. This was temporary. Once Derek adjusted to his new reality, once we found our rhythm, the love would come back. It had to. But it never did. Instead, our apartment became a prison. Derek in his wheelchair, me in my role as caregiver. Both of us trapped by the accident that I increasingly suspected wasn't as simple as everyone claimed. Tony stopped by occasionally, usually on Sunday afternoons. He never stayed long. 20 minutes max. Derek always seemed different when Tony was there. Less demanding, more conversational. Almost like his old self. How are you holding up? Tony asked me one Sunday in March, speaking quietly in the kitchen while Derek watched television. I'm fine, I lied automatically. Natasha, you look exhausted. Have you thought about respite care? Just for a few days so you can rest. We can't afford that. I could help. Or Imani. We could figure something out. Derek needs me here. Tony looked like he wanted to say more but didn't. That was the thing about Derek's injury. It had this way of silencing everyone around it. How could you complain when someone was paralyzed? How could you prioritize your own needs? The daily routine consumed everything. 6 a.m. helped Derek with bathroom needs and shower. 7 a.m. breakfast. 8 a.m. medications. 9 a.m. physical therapy exercises. 10 a.m. get him dressed. 11 a.m. free time where he watched television and I cleaned, did laundry, made phone calls to insurance companies. Noon lunch. 1 p.m. more exercises. 2 p.m. his rest time where I usually ran necessary errands. 4 p.m. prepare dinner. 5 p.m. eat. 6 p.m. evening medications. 7 p.m. television. 9 p.m. help him prepare for bed. 10 p.m. collapse. Every single day. The physical exhaustion was brutal. Lifting him, moving him, supporting his weight multiple times daily. My back ached constantly. I developed carpal tunnel in both wrists from wheelchair pushing. I gained weight from stress and lack of exercise, then lost it again because I often forgot to eat. But the emotional exhaustion was worse. Derek had become someone I didn't recognize. Critical, demanding, never satisfied. If dinner was too hot, he complained. Too cold, he complained. The television too loud, too quiet, wrong channel. His clothes uncomfortable, the room too bright, too dark. Nothing I did was right. I need you to move the chair closer to the window, he would say. I would move it. Not there. More to the left. I would adjust. I said left. Don't you understand directions? I would bite my tongue and adjust again. Forget it. Just forget it. You never listen. That was my life. Constant criticism dressed up as needs. And I couldn't protest because he was paralyzed. What if his requests were legitimate? What if I was being impatient with a man who had lost everything? Imani visited every few weeks, always bringing groceries or supplies. She would wear her professional clothes from work, maroon pants, suits or green dresses, looking polished and put together. Everything I no longer was. Tasha, you need a break, she said in May of year 2. Come stay with me for a weekend. We'll hire a nurse for Derek. I can't leave him. Yes, you can. You need to. Imani, please. I'm fine. You're not fine. You look like a ghost. When was the last time you did anything for yourself? When was the last time you even left this apartment except for Derek's appointments? I couldn't remember. Weeks. Months? I'm handling it. No, you're surviving it. That's different. But I couldn't accept help. Accepting help felt like admitting I wasn't enough. That my love wasn't strong enough to carry us through this. So I kept going, kept giving, kept shrinking into nothing. The strange thing started in late summer. Small things I noticed but immediately dismissed. The wheelchair was in the living room when I came home from the pharmacy. I had left it next to the bed. Derek, did Tony visit? I asked. No, why? The chair moved. I pulled myself to it. Wanted a change of scenery. But that didn't make sense. He couldn't use his legs. How had he moved himself across the room? Another time, I found a coffee cup in the sink when I came back from a doctor's appointment. I hadn't made coffee that morning. Did you make coffee? I asked. Tony brought some when he stopped by. Tony was here? Just for a minute? You just missed him. But Tony hadn't mentioned visiting when I texted him later. His calf muscles looked too defined during one physical therapy session. The therapist even commented on it. His muscle tone is better than expected. You must be doing the exercises regularly. 3 times a day, I confirmed. Well, it's working. Some atrophy is normal, but he's maintained remarkable muscle mass. Was that good or strange? I didn't know anymore. The phone calls increased. Derek's phone would ring, he would check it, then decline the call. Sometimes he would text back quickly, then delete the message. When I asked who was calling, he always had an explanation. Tony. Old coworker. Insurance company. One Wednesday in October, I smelled perfume on his shirt. Not mine. Something floral and expensive. What's that smell? I asked. What smell? Perfume. On your shirt. He sniffed. Oh. Must be from the physical therapist. She wears strong perfume. Gave me a headache all session. But our physical therapist was a man named Robert. I stood there holding his laundry, knowing I had just caught him in a lie, and said nothing. Because how could I accuse my paralyzed husband of lying? What if I was wrong? What if I was becoming paranoid from stress? So I washed the shirt and never mentioned it again. The credit card charges appeared in November. 3 separate charges at local hotels. Small amounts like room service or parking. Derek, there are charges from the Marriott on our card. Were we billed wrong? He barely looked up from the television. Someone probably stole our number. Call and dispute it. I called. The charges were legitimate from our card being physically used. I told Derek. Well, I didn't make them. Must be fraud. Cancel the card. I canceled it. Ordered a new one. Tried to ignore the sick feeling in my stomach. In December I saw her. The woman in the blue dress. I had gone to pick up Derek's medications at the pharmacy 2 blocks away. It usually took 45 minutes. But the pharmacy was out of stock, so I came home after 20 minutes. As I approached our building, a woman walked out. Tall, curvy, beautiful. She wore a blue dress despite the cold and carried a large designer purse. Her hair was professionally styled. She looked confident, alive. Everything I had lost. She smiled at something on her phone and walked away without noticing me. Something about her made my skin crawl. I couldn't explain it. Just a feeling. I went inside. Derek was in his wheelchair watching television, exactly where I had left him. His shirt was buttoned wrong, but that happened sometimes when he dressed himself. I'm back early. Pharmacy didn't have your prescription. Okay. When will they have it? Tomorrow. Fine. You seem normal. Nothing off. I told myself I was imagining things. But that night, lying in bed next to him, I couldn't sleep. My mind kept circling back to all the small strange things. The moved wheelchair. The coffee cup. The muscle tone. The phone calls. The perfume. The credit card charges. The woman in blue. Individually, each thing had an explanation. Together, they whispered something I didn't want to hear. I turned to look at Derek sleeping beside me. His face peaceful, untroubled. The face I had fallen in love with 6 years ago. Could this man be lying to me? Could he be capable of such cruelty? No. The accident had damaged his spine, not his character. I was stressed, exhausted, seeing patterns where none existed. I fell asleep telling myself that. I woke up still trying to believe it. But doubt, once planted, grows roots. The new year came with a resolution I made to myself at 3 a.m. on January 2nd. I would stop being suspicious. Derek was paralyzed. He needed me. My doubt was a symptom of caregiver burnout, not reality. I needed to be better, stronger, more trusting. That resolution lasted exactly 3 weeks. On January 23rd, I came home from the grocery store to find the television on a different channel than when I left. Derek was watching a cooking show. He hated cooking shows. Always said they were boring. Since when do you watch cooking shows? I asked, putting away groceries. Since I have nothing else to do all day, he snapped. Fair enough. Maybe he was expanding his interest. I let it go. 2 days later, I found an earring on the bathroom floor. Small gold hoop. Not mine. I wore studs, never hoops. Derek, I found this in the bathroom. I held it up. Any idea where it came from? He glanced at it. Probably Imani's from last time she visited. But Imani hadn't visited in 2 weeks, and I had mopped the bathroom 3 times since then. That earring was fresh. Are you sure? I pressed. What are you implying, Natasha? His voice went cold. You think I'm sneaking women in here? In case you forgot, I can't walk. I can't even feel my legs. But sure, I'm having affairs. The sarcasm cut deep. I felt like an awful person. Here he was, paralyzed and trapped, and I was accusing him of infidelity. What was wrong with me? I'm sorry. You're right. I'm just tired. You're always tired lately. Maybe you should see a doctor. I threw the earring away and tried to forget about it. But I couldn't forget. Because more things kept happening. In February, the apartment smelled like someone had been cooking when I returned from a doctor's appointment. We hadn't cooked anything that morning. Derek claimed he had asked Tony to bring lunch. In March, I found muddy tracks on the floor leading from the door to Derek's wheelchair. Small tracks. Women's shoes. Did someone visit? I asked. Tony came by. Tony wears a size 12 boot. These are small. Maybe he brought someone. I don't know, Natasha. I was sleeping. Always an explanation. Always just plausible enough. The physical changes in Derek bothered me more. By year 3, a paralyzed person should show significant muscle atrophy. But Derek's legs looked firm, defined even. I mentioned it to Robert, our physical therapist. I've never seen muscle tone maintain this well in a complete paralysis case, Robert admitted. Whatever you're doing with his exercises is working. But I wasn't doing anything different. The exercises were the same as always. Passive range of motion. No weight bearing. No resistance training. Nothing that should build or maintain muscle. Unless he was using those muscles when I wasn't around. The thought hit me one Tuesday afternoon while I was transferring him from wheelchair to bed. His leg felt tense, almost resistant. Like he was bracing himself. Did you just tense your leg? I asked. What? No. Probably a spasm. Spasms were normal in spinal injury. But that hadn't felt like a spasm. It felt like voluntary muscle control. I said nothing. But I started watching more carefully. His spasms always happened at convenient times. When I was about to do something he didn't like. When he wanted to avoid an activity. When he needed an excuse to cut short therapy. Oh, bad spasm. Need to rest. And I would stop, adjust, accommodate. The phone situation escalated in April. Derek's phone rang constantly now. He would check it, ignore the call, delete notifications. When I asked about it, he grew irritated. It's spam calls. Everyone gets them. But you're getting like 20 a day. So block them for me if it bothers you so much. I picked up his phone one day when he was in the bathroom. I just wanted to help block the numbers. The phone was password protected. It had never been password protected before. Derek, when did you add a password to your phone? Last week. For security. Why are you going through my phone? I'm not. I was trying to help block spam. I'll do it myself. He never did. In May, our bank account showed ATM withdrawals I didn't make. Small amounts. 20 here, 40 there. Maybe $200 over a month. Did you take cash out? I asked. I don't have access to the ATM. Someone used our card. Cancel it then. We canceled the card. The withdrawals stopped. But something felt wrong. Derek couldn't physically get to an ATM. So who made those withdrawals? And where was the cash going? Imani visited in early June wearing a green sundress. She looked at our apartment with barely concealed concern. At me with poorly hidden pity. Tasha, can we talk? Outside. We sat on the small patio behind the building. The June sun felt foreign on my skin. I couldn't remember the last time I had sat outside just to sit outside. You look terrible, Imani said bluntly. You've lost weight. You have dark circles under your eyes. When was the last time you did something for yourself? I'm fine. You're not fine. And I'm worried. This isn't healthy. Derek is taking everything from you. He's paralyzed, Imani. He needs care. He needs professional care. Not his wife sacrificing her entire existence. I made vows. Vows go both ways. He should want you to be healthy too. I had no response to that. Because Derek didn't seem to care about my health at all. There's something else, Imani said carefully. I've been thinking about this for a while and I need to ask. Have you ever questioned whether Derek's injury is as severe as he claims? My heart stopped. What do you mean? I mean, 3 years in, his muscles still look good. He never seems to have infections or complications. Everything about his recovery seems, I don't know, off. You think he's faking? I think something doesn't add up. I wanted to argue but couldn't, because I had been thinking the same thing for months. I just couldn't admit it. If he was faking, the doctors would know, I said weakly. Would they? If someone was determined enough, had researched enough, knew what responses to give? You're a nurse, Tasha. You know people can fool doctors. I did know that. Medical fraud happened. Malingering existed. But this was my husband. My husband who I had cared for every single day for 3 years. Surely I would know if he was lying. Wouldn't I? I can't think about this right now, I told Imani. I need to get back inside. Tasha. I need to go. I went back inside. Derek was watching television, same as always. I looked at him, really looked, trying to see the truth. He looked back. Everything okay? Fine. But nothing was fine. And I knew it. June turned into July. July into August. The signs piled up. Moved objects. Strange smells. Phone calls. Changed routines. My medical training screamed that something was wrong, but my heart couldn't accept it. Until one scorching Tuesday in August. Derek had his annual checkup. We usually saw Dr. Mitchell, an older physician who did basic exams and renewed prescriptions. But Dr. Mitchell had retired. Our new doctor was younger, more thorough. Dr. Patterson. I wheeled Derek into the examination room, helped him onto the table. Standard procedure. I had done this a dozen times. Dr. Patterson entered with a tablet and a focused expression. Mr. Reynolds, Mrs. Reynolds. I'm Dr. Patterson. I've reviewed your medical history. Today I'd like to do a complete neurological assessment. More comprehensive than you've had recently. Is that necessary? Derek asked, and I heard tension in his voice. It's been a year since your last detailed neuro exam. Best practice is annual assessments. Mrs. Reynolds, I'll need you to step out for this. I started to protest. I always stayed during exams. But Dr. Patterson's expression said this wasn't negotiable. I'll be right outside, I told Derek. I sat in the hallway for 20 minutes. Heard muffled voices. Medical equipment sounds. Nothing unusual. Then Dr. Patterson opened the door, his face grave. Mrs. Reynolds, please come in. Derek was sitting on the exam table. His face was pale. Mrs. Reynolds, I need you to call the police, Dr. Patterson said. And my world ended. The police arrived in 12 minutes. In that time, Dr. Patterson kept Derek in the exam room while a nurse led me to a small private consultation room. I sat in a chair, my hands shaking, my mind blank with shock. Detective Morrison arrived first. She was maybe 40, with kind eyes that had seen too much. She wore a blue pantsuit and carried a worn notebook. Mrs. Reynolds, I'm Detective Morrison. Dr. Patterson called in a suspected case of fraud and possible abuse. I need to ask you some questions. I don't understand what's happening, I whispered. Dr. Patterson performed a thorough neurological examination on your husband. He has full sensation and motor function in his lower extremities. Mr. Reynolds is not paralyzed and has not been paralyzed. Do you understand what I'm telling you? The words made no sense. That's impossible. He's been in a wheelchair for 4 years. He can't walk. He can't feel his legs. Mrs. Reynolds, he can. The doctor performed 17 different tests. Your husband has normal reflexes, normal muscle tone, normal response to stimulation. He nearly kicked the doctor during one test before catching himself. I couldn't breathe. The room was tilting. For years, I said. I've cared for him every day for 4 years. I know. That's why we're here. What your husband did constitutes fraud, theft, and potentially abuse. We need your statement. She asked questions. I answered mechanically. When did the injury happen? What care had I provided? Had there been strange occurrences? Financial irregularities? I told her everything. The moved wheelchair. The muscle tone. The perfume. The woman in blue. The credit card charges. The ATM withdrawals. Every single red flag I had noticed and dismissed. Did you ever suspect he wasn't really paralyzed? Detective Morrison asked. I had doubts, especially recently. But I'm a nurse. I trusted the doctors. I trusted him. My voice broke. He's my husband. I'm sorry, Mrs. Reynolds. I know this is devastating, Devastating didn't cover it. My entire life for 4 years had been a performance for an audience of one. Every exhausted morning. Every aching transfer. Every sacrifice. All of it for a lie. The woman in blue, I said suddenly. I saw a woman leaving our building in December. Blue dress, designer purse. Who is she? Detective Morrison checked her notes. We'll look into all associates of your husband. Do you have any information about her? No. Just that I saw her once. She looked confident. Polished. The opposite of me. We'll find out who she is. They questioned Derek separately. I didn't see him again that day. Dr. Patterson kept me in the consultation room, had a nurse bring me water, sat with me while I processed. How did you know? I asked him. His reflexes were too quick. When I tested pain response, he withdrew before the stimulation. Like he anticipated it. Then his muscle tone was far too strong for someone who had been paralyzed for years. I performed additional tests, some without warning. Every response indicated normal functioning. When I confronted him, he tried to maintain the deception. But his body betrayed him. How is this possible? Other doctors examined him. Spinal injuries can be complex. If a patient knows what responses indicate paralysis, they can fake it. Especially if doctors aren't looking for deception. Your husband knew enough about spinal injuries to be convincing. And he had you, a trained nurse, caring for him. That added credibility. I felt sick. I helped him. I gave him credibility because I was a nurse. You were a wife caring for an injured husband. You had no reason to suspect fraud. But I had suspected. For months I had suspected. I just couldn't let myself believe it. Detective Morrison returned 2 hours later. Mrs. Reynolds, we need you to come to the station to give a formal statement. We're taking your husband into custody. On what charges? For now, fraud. We'll add more as the investigation continues. Medical fraud, insurance fraud, theft by deception. Possibly more. They let me see Derek before they took him away. He was in the exam room, now with a uniformed officer standing by the door. He looked at me with an expression I couldn't read. Natasha. Don't. I held up my hand. I don't want to hear anything from you right now. It's not what you think. You can walk. You've been able to walk for 4 years while I sacrificed everything to care for you. What part of that is not what I think? I can explain. No. You can explain to the police. You can explain to a judge. You will never explain anything to me again. I walked out. I didn't look back. The police station was downtown. Detective Morrison led me to an interview room and took my statement, now being recorded. I told her everything again. 4 years of caregiving. The financial drain. My abandoned career. My isolated existence. Every detail of the life I had lost. Did your husband ever physically harm you? She asked. No. But he what, Mrs. Reynolds? He was cruel. Not hitting cruel. Just, he criticized everything. Nothing I did was right. He was demanding, ungrateful. He made me feel worthless. That's emotional abuse. I had never thought of it that way. He was paralyzed. He was suffering. How could I call that abuse? Except he wasn't paralyzed. He was never suffering. He was lying. We're going to need access to your financial records, medical records, phone records, Detective Morrison said. Is that okay? Take whatever you need. I want the truth. You'll have it. They drove me home that evening. The apartment looked different now. Every modification I had made, every accommodation, felt like a monument to my gullibility. The ramps, the grab bars, the lowered counters, all of it unnecessary. I walked through the rooms, seeing 4 years of my life through new eyes. This was where I had destroyed myself for a lie. This was where my marriage died while I was too busy caregiving to notice. My phone rang. Imani. Tasha, oh my God. Tony called me. Is it true? Yes. He's been faking the whole time. Silence. Then, I'm coming over. You don't have to. I'm coming over. She arrived 30 minutes later carrying takeout and a bottle of wine. We sat on my couch, the same couch I had spent countless nights sleeping on because Derek needed the bed, and she held me while I cried. I wasted 4 years, I said. 4 years of my life. He stole them. That's different. I should have known. The signs were there. He deceived everyone. Doctors, therapists, insurance companies. You had no reason to think your husband was capable of this. I had doubts. For months I had doubts. Having doubts isn't the same as knowing. Stop blaming yourself for his evil. Evil. Was that what it was? Or was it just profound selfishness and cruelty? Imani stayed that night. We slept in the living room, neither of us wanting to use the bedroom. In the morning she made breakfast while I stared at nothing. What happens now? I asked. Now you get a lawyer. Now you take back your life. Now you make him pay for every single thing he stole from you. I don't even know where to start. I do. I'm calling Claudia Winters. She's the best family law attorney in the city. She'll help you. I can't afford. She owes me a favor. She'll take your case. Over the next week, the investigation expanded. Detective Morrison called me with updates. They had obtained Derek's phone records. Hundreds of calls and texts to a number belonging to someone named Simone Grant. They were searching for her. They had reviewed our bank account. The ATM withdrawals were made by Derek using a card in his name. Somehow, he had been leaving the apartment and accessing money while claiming to be paralyzed. They had obtained building security footage. On dozens of occasions over 3 years, cameras showed Derek walking in and out of our building during times I was away. Sometimes alone. Sometimes with a woman matching the description of the woman in blue. Simone Grant. They brought me to the station to look at a photo. The moment I saw her, recognition hit like a truck. That's her. That's the woman in blue. Her name is Simone Grant. She's 31, works as a paralegal. We believe she and your husband have been in a relationship for approximately 3 years. She was aware of the fraud and actively participated in it. How? She visited your apartment regularly when you were out. Security footage shows her entering and leaving multiple times per week. We believe she and your husband were planning to eventually take your money and leave together. My money. My inheritance from my grandmother, which I had kept in a separate account for emergencies. $30,000 that Derek had been slowly draining through those ATM withdrawals and his mysterious expenses. We're bringing her in for questioning, Detective Morrison said. I thought you should know. 2 days later, they arrested Simone Grant as an accomplice to fraud. The news covered the story. Local man faked paralysis while wife provided care. It went viral. My phone exploded with messages. Old friends. Former co-workers. People I hadn't spoken to in years. Everyone shocked. Everyone supportive, everyone wanting details. I ignored most of them. I couldn't deal with sympathy or curiosity. I could barely get out of bed. Claudia Winters came to my apartment a week after Derek's arrest. She was maybe 50, sharp-eyed and sharper dressed in a maroon suit. She sat across from me and got straight to business. Mrs. Reynolds, I've reviewed the police report and your financial records. You have an excellent case for divorce, criminal charges, and a substantial civil suit. I want to represent you. I can't afford. You will be able to afford it from your settlement. I'll work on contingency plus expenses. What was done to you is unconscionable. I want to help you get justice. Justice. The word felt foreign. I didn't want justice. I wanted the last 4 years back. But since I couldn't have that, justice would have to do. The morning of Derek's hospital appointment started like every other morning for the past 4 years. My alarm went off at 6 a.m. I dragged myself out of bed, my body aching from yesterday's care routines, my mind already running through everything that needed to happen before we could leave. Derek's appointment was at 10 a.m. That meant I had to start his morning routine by 6:30 to have us ready on time. The medical transport van would arrive at 9:30. Everything had to run perfectly on schedule. I wore my red pullover and jeans, practical clothes that wouldn't show stains or wrinkles. I hadn't bothered with makeup in years. What was the point? Derek, time to wake up, I said, gently touching his shoulder. He groaned, turned his head away. 5 more minutes. We have the appointment. We need to start now to be ready. Another groan, but he opened his eyes. This was our routine. Every morning the same reluctance. Every morning I accommodated it. I helped him into his wheelchair, then to the bathroom for his shower. The adaptive equipment made it easier than it had been in year 1, but it was still exhausting. Transferring his weight, supporting him, making sure he didn't fall. By 8 a.m. he was dressed and fed. I had packed his medications, his medical records, everything the doctor might need. I had learned to be thorough. Missing one document could mean rescheduling, which meant more time, more effort, more of my life consumed. The transport van arrived exactly on time. 2 men helped Derek down the ramp and into the van. I climbed in after him, settling into the seat beside his secured wheelchair. These rides were silent now. We had nothing to talk about anymore. Memorial Hospital was 20 minutes away. The same hospital where this nightmare began 4 years ago. I hated this building. Hated its antiseptic smell, its fluorescent lights, its false promises of healing. Check in at 9:50. The receptionist knew us. Mr. Reynolds' annual checkup with, "Oh, you have a new physician. Dr. Patterson. He's running right on time. Room 3B. Room 3B was down a familiar hallway, past the physical therapy unit where Derek had done his initial rehab. Past rooms where I had once worked as a nurse, in a life that felt like it belonged to someone else. Dr. Patterson was younger than Dr. Mitchell, maybe 45, with an intense, focused energy. He reviewed Derek's chart on his tablet while we settled into the room. "Mr. Reynolds, Mrs. Reynolds. I'm Dr. Patterson. I'll be your physician going forward. I've reviewed your medical history and I'd like to do a more comprehensive neurological exam today than you've had recently." Something in his tone made me alert. Not suspicious, just thorough. Like he actually cared about getting things right. "Is that necessary?" Derek asked, and I heard it. The slight tension in his voice. Was that anxiety? "I think it's important. You've been living with this injury for 4 years. A detailed assessment will help us ensure we're not missing any changes in your condition, positive or negative." "Fine," Derek said, but he didn't sound fine. Dr. Patterson began the examination. Standard stuff at first. Checking Derek's vitals, examining his upper body, asking about pain levels and daily functioning. Then he moved to Derek's legs. "Mrs. Reynolds, I'm going to need you to step outside for this part of the exam. I find patients are more relaxed without family present for neurological assessments." I had never been asked to leave before. "Are you sure?" "I'm a nurse. I usually assist." "I'm sure. There's a waiting area just outside. This should take about 20 minutes. Something felt off, but I couldn't argue with a doctor's request. "Okay. Derek, I'll be right outside if you need me." Derek nodded but wouldn't meet my eyes. I sat in the hallway waiting area, checking my phone, scrolling mindlessly through social media. Pictures of other people's lives. Vacations, celebrations, normal everyday happiness. Things that felt like they belonged to a different universe. 15 minutes passed. 20. I heard voices from the exam room but couldn't make out words. Was something wrong? Should I go back in? Then the door opened. Dr. Patterson's face was grim. "Mrs. Reynolds, please come in." I walked in. Derek was sitting on the exam table, fully dressed, his face pale and drawn. The atmosphere in the room had changed. Something had happened. Dr. Patterson moved to stand beside me. "Mrs. Reynolds, I need you to call the police. Right now." My knees nearly gave out. What? Is Derek okay?" "Your husband is physically fine. Better than fine." Dr. Patterson's voice was tight with controlled anger. "Mrs. Reynolds, I don't know how to tell you this gently, so I'm just going to say it. Your husband is not paralyzed. He has full sensation and motor function in his lower extremities. He has been deceiving you." The world stopped. That's not possible." But even as I said it, every doubt I had ever had came crashing back. The moved wheelchair. The maintained muscle tone. The strange occurrences. The woman in blue. Derek. He wouldn't look at me. "The doctor is wrong." "Mr. Reynolds, I am not wrong." Dr. Patterson's voice was steel. "I performed 17 different tests. You have normal deep tendon reflexes. When I applied unexpected painful stimulus to your foot, you withdrew it before the stimulus made contact, indicating you felt and anticipated it. Your muscle tone is far too strong for someone with a 4-year-old complete spinal injury. During one test, you nearly kicked me before you caught yourself." "I have spasms," Derek said weakly. "That was not a spasm. That was voluntary movement." Dr. Patterson turned to me. "Mrs. Reynolds, I've been a neurologist for 20 years. I've treated hundreds of spinal injury patients. Your husband's responses are not consistent with paralysis. They're consistent with someone pretending to be paralyzed." I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. 4 years. 4 years of my life. "Mrs. Reynolds, you need to call the police." Dr. Patterson held out his phone. "What your husband has done is fraud, and based on what you've told me about providing his care, possibly constitutes abuse. This needs to be reported immediately." My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone. I dialed 911. Told them what the doctor had said. Gave them the location. My voice sounded like it belonged to someone else. "Officers are on their way," the dispatcher said. "Remain where you are." I hung up. Looked at Derek. Really looked at him. He looked back, and for the first time in 4 years I saw him clearly. Not my injured husband who needed me. Not the victim of a terrible accident. Just a man. A man who had lied to me every single day for 4 years. A man who had watched me sacrifice everything and felt nothing. "Why?" The word came out broken. He didn't answer. "Why, Derek? Why would you do this to me?" Still nothing. Dr. Patterson called hospital security. 2 guards arrived and positioned themselves at the door. We waited in silence for the police. I stood as far from Derek as the small room allowed, my mind replaying 4 years and fast forward. Every exhausted morning. Every sacrifice. Every moment I had given him everything while he gave me nothing but lies. The police arrived in 10 minutes. 2 uniformed officers first, then Detective Morrison. She took statements from Dr. Patterson, from me, from Derek. The medical evidence was overwhelming. Derek's neurological responses proved he had full function. There was no room for doubt anymore. "Mr. Reynolds, you're under arrest for fraud and suspected abuse," Detective Morrison said. "You have the right to remain silent." I didn't hear the rest. I was watching Derek's face as they put handcuffs on him. Watching for remorse, for shame, for anything human. I saw nothing but calculation. He was already figuring out his next move. His next lie. They let him out. Dr. Patterson put a gentle hand on my shoulder. "Mrs. Reynolds, do you have someone who can drive you home? You shouldn't be alone right now." I called Imani. She answered on the first ring. "Tasha? Aren't you at Derek's appointment?" Something happened. My voice broke. "Can you come get me? At Memorial Hospital? I'm leaving now. Are you hurt?" "No. Derek can walk. He's been faking it. The whole time." Silence on the other end. Then, "I'm 10 minutes away. Don't move." I sat in the waiting area while Detective Morrison finished getting statements from hospital staff. Dr. Patterson sat with me, explained the medical findings in detail. How he knew. What the test showed. Why he was certain. "How did no one catch this before?" I asked. "Your husband was convincing. He knew what responses indicated paralysis. He maintained the deception well. And honestly, Mrs. Reynolds, doctors aren't usually looking for fraud. We assume patients are telling the truth. He exploited that. I'm a nurse. I should have known. You're his wife. You trusted him. That's not a failing, that's love. He's the one who failed. Not you. But it felt like failure. 4 years of my life gone. My career, my finances, my health, my happiness. All stolen by a man who could walk whenever I wasn't looking." Imani arrived and wrapped me in her arms. "Oh, Tasha. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. You were right. You said something was off. I didn't want to be right." She drove me home. We didn't talk much. What was there to say? At my apartment, everything looked different. The ramps. The modifications. The wheelchair in the corner. All of it props in Derek's performance. All of it monuments to my stupidity. "I need to destroy this place," I said. "Not today. Today you rest. Tomorrow we figure out next steps." But I couldn't rest. My mind kept racing. 4 years of memories, all lies. Did he laugh when I left for the grocery store? Did he and that woman mock me together? Did he feel anything at all as he watched me destroy myself for him? Detective Morrison called that evening. "Mrs. Reynolds, I need to prepare you. The investigation is going to be extensive. We'll be looking at financial records, phone records, building security footage. We'll be questioning associates. It's going to take time, but we will build a complete picture of what your husband did." There's more? How could there possibly be more? There's always more in cases like this. I'm sorry. I know this is overwhelming. Underwhelming. That's the problem. Nothing could be overwhelming enough for what he did. I understand. We'll be in touch. That night, I lay in the bed Derek and I had shared for 4 years. The bed I had carefully modified for his comfort. The bed where I had slept next to him every night while he lied to my face. And I made a decision. He had stolen 4 years. He wouldn't steal one more day. Starting tomorrow, I was taking my life back. However long it took, whatever it cost, I was going to make him pay for every single thing he had done. And I was going to make sure everyone knew what kind of monster he really was. Detective Morrison called me at 8 a.m. the next morning. I hadn't slept. I had spent the night alternating between crying and staring at the ceiling, my mind unable to process what had happened. "Mrs. Reynolds, I need you to come to the station this morning to give a formal statement. Can you be here by 10? "Yes, I'll be there." Imani drove me. She had taken the day off work, insisted on staying with me until I could function alone again. I didn't know when that would be. The police station was downtown, a gray building that matched my mood. Detective Morrison met us in the lobby and led me to an interview room. Imani waited outside. "Mrs. Reynolds, I'm going to record this. Is that okay?" "Yes." She pressed record. "Please state your name for the record." "Natasha Reynolds." "Mrs. Reynolds, tell me about your husband's injury." Start from the beginning. I told her everything. The accident. The diagnosis. The care I provided. The 4 years of sacrifice. As I talked, I heard my own voice describing a life that sounded insane. How had I lived like that? How had I not seen the truth? Did you ever suspect your husband wasn't actually paralyzed? Detective Morrison asked. Yes, especially in the last year. Small things didn't add up. Objects moved when I was gone. His muscle tone was too good. Strange occurrences. But every time I questioned, he had an explanation. And I felt guilty for doubting him. That's understandable. He manipulated your trust. Can you tell me about the financial impact? I pulled out the folder Imani had helped me compile. Bank statements, credit card bills, medical expenses. Everything documented. I quit my nursing job to care for him. I was making $55,000 a year. Over 4 years, that's over $200,000 in lost income, not counting lost career advancement. We spent approximately $40,000 on medical equipment and home modifications. Another $30,000 on medications and supplies. I drained my inheritance from my grandmother, which was $30,000. In total, probably $300,000 in direct financial losses, not counting emotional damages. Detective Morrison's eyes widened. $300,000. And 4 years of my life. We're going to charge him with fraud, grand theft, and emotional abuse. The financial evidence alone is overwhelming. What about the woman? Simone? We're bringing her in today. Phone records show constant communication between them over 3 years. We have building security footage showing her entering and leaving your apartment dozens of times. She's culpable. I want to see the footage. Mrs. Reynolds, I don't think. I need to see it. I need to know the truth. She hesitated, then nodded. Okay. But it's going to be hard to watch. She was right. The footage was devastating. Video after video of Derek walking. Walking to the door to let Simone in. Walking around the apartment. Walking to the bedroom. Every movement confident, easy, normal. Like he had never been injured at all. In one video from 3 months ago, I saw myself leaving with grocery bags. 5 minutes later, Derek stood up from his wheelchair and walked to the window. Simone arrived 10 minutes after that. They kissed in the doorway. My husband, kissing another woman in our home while pretending to be paralyzed. I need to see more, I said, my voice flat. Detective Morrison showed me footage from 2 years ago. Derek walking out of the building alone, then returning 3 hours later with shopping bags. Footage from 18 months ago, Derek and Simone leaving together in her car. Footage from 6 months ago, Derek carrying groceries into the building while I was at a doctor's appointment for myself. How often? I asked. Based on the footage we've reviewed so far, he left the apartment an average of 3 to 4 times per week during your absences. Simone visited approximately twice per week. 3 to 4 times per week. While I thought he was safely at home, helpless, needing me, he was out living a normal life. What did he do when he left? We're still piecing that together. But we have ATM footage of him withdrawing cash. Restaurant receipts in his name. Hotel charges. He was living a parallel life. A parallel life. With Simone. While I sacrificed everything. I want to press charges. Every charge you can think of. We're already building the case. But Mrs. Reynolds, I need to warn you. This is going to get worse before it gets better. As we dig deeper, we're going to uncover more. Are you prepared for that? I don't have a choice. She showed me more evidence. Derek's phone records. Thousands of texts to Simone over 3 years. I didn't read them all. I couldn't. But the ones Detective Morrison highlighted were enough. Can't wait until she leaves for the store. Miss you. 3 hours alone today. Come over. She's getting suspicious. Need to be more careful. Just a little longer and we'll have enough to leave. That last one stopped me cold. Leave? It appears they were planning to run away together. Using your money. My money. My grandmother's inheritance that I had protected for emergencies. The money Derek had been slowly draining through those ATM withdrawals. How much did he take? So far, we've traced about $18,000 in unauthorized withdrawals. That doesn't include the credit card charges and cash he took directly from your accounts. $18,000. Half my inheritance. Gone. Can I get it back? That's a civil matter, but yes. With criminal convictions, you'll have a strong case for restitution. You'll get every penny back plus damages. I don't want the money. I want him to suffer. Detective Morrison looked at me with understanding. He will. I promise you he will. She brought in another officer, Detective Chin, who specialized in financial crimes. He walked me through the paper trail Derek had created. False insurance claims. Fraudulent disability payments. Forged medical documentation. Every piece of evidence showed careful, deliberate planning. Your husband didn't just fake an injury on impulse, Detective Chin explained. He researched this. He knew what tests to fake, what responses to give, how to maintain the deception long-term. This was calculated fraud. Why? Why would someone do this? Financial gain primarily. Your husband was in debt before his supposed injury. Gambling debts, failed investments. The accident gave him an opportunity to reset. Collect disability, have you support him, drain your resources, then disappear with Ms. Grant. I felt sick. How long was he planning this? We're not sure yet. But based on financial records, he was already in contact with Ms. Grant before the accident. It's possible the relationship predated the injury. Before the accident. Which meant Derek had been cheating on me even when he could walk. The paralysis was just a convenient cover for an affair that was already happening. I need air, I said suddenly. The room was too small, too close. Detective Morrison led me outside to a small courtyard. Imani was there immediately, wrapping her arms around me. How bad? She asked. Worse than I thought possible. I told her everything. The footage, the text, the financial fraud, the planning. She listened, her face growing darker with anger. We're going to destroy him, she said. Legally, financially, socially. By the time we're done, everyone will know what he did. I don't care about revenge, I said. But I was lying. I did care. I wanted him to hurt the way he had hurt me. We went back inside. Detective Morrison had more questions. About Simone. About Derek's habits. About anything that might help the case. Did you ever meet Simone Grant before? She asked. No. But I saw her once. She was leaving our building. Blue dress, designer purse. She looked like everything I wasn't anymore. Can you describe her in more detail? I closed my eyes, remembering. Tall, maybe 5'8". Curvy. Professional looking. She walked like she owned the world. The opposite of how I felt. That matches our information. She works as a paralegal at Bennett and Associates downtown. She has no criminal record, comes from a middle-class family. On paper, she's an ordinary woman. Who helped my husband steal 4 years of my life? Yes. They brought Simone in that afternoon. I watched through one-way glass as they interrogated her. She looked different than I remembered. Smaller somehow, less confident. She wore a green blouse and black pants. Her lawyer sat beside her, a thin man in an expensive suit. Miss Grant, we have evidence that you were involved in a fraud scheme with Derek Reynolds, Detective Morrison said. Phone records, security footage, witness statements. You visited Mrs. Reynolds' apartment regularly while she was out, engaging in a relationship with Mr. Reynolds while he pretended to be paralyzed. What do you have to say? I want immunity, Simone said. Her voice was high, nervous. We're not offering immunity. We're offering a chance to cooperate and possibly reduce your charges. Simone looked at her lawyer. He nodded. Fine. Yes, I was seeing Derek. He told me he was unhappy in his marriage. He said his wife was controlling, that he felt trapped. The paralysis was his way out. I felt my hands clench into fists. Controlling. I was controlling. Did you know he was faking the paralysis? Detective Morrison asked. Not at first. He told me he was recovering, that he had more mobility than he let on. I didn't realize he could fully walk until about a year into our relationship. By then, I was in love with him. He said we just needed more time to get enough money to leave. My money? I whispered from behind the glass. Miss Grant, you actively participated in this fraud. You visited him regularly, helped him maintain the deception, and planned to run away with stolen funds. That's conspiracy. I know it was wrong. But Derek was convincing. He made me believe his wife was awful, that she deserved it. Did you ever feel guilty about what you were doing to Mrs. Reynolds? Simone hesitated. Sometimes. But Derek said she was mean to him. That she held the injury over his head, made him feel worthless. I thought I was helping him escape abuse. I laughed bitterly. She thought I was the abuser. The woman who had given up everything. The interrogation continued for 2 hours. By the end, Simone had confessed her everything. The relationship, the fraud knowledge, the plans to leave. She agreed to testify against Derek in exchange for reduced charges. Detective Morrison came to get me after. Mrs. Reynolds, we have enough for arrest warrants on both of them. Derek is still in custody from yesterday. We're charging him with fraud, grand theft, and spousal abuse. Simone is being charged as an accomplice. When's the trial? Probably 6 to 8 months. These cases take time. I can wait. I've waited 4 years already. She gave me her card. Call me if you think of anything else. Anything at all that might help the case. Imani took me home. The apartment felt different now, tainted by knowledge. Every room held memories that were now lies. The bedroom where Derek slept peacefully while planning to betray me. The bathroom where I had bathed him like a helpless child while he laughed inside. The living room where I had spent nights on the couch because he needed the bed. All lies. I can't stay here, I told Imani. Then don't. Come stay with me until you figure things out. I need to find a lawyer. For the divorce and the civil suit. I already called Claudia Winters. She's the best. She'll take your case. I can't afford. She's working on contingency. You don't pay unless you win. And Tasha, you're going to win. The evidence is overwhelming. That night at Imani's apartment, I lay in her guest room and thought about Derek sitting in a jail cell. Good. I hoped he was suffering. I hoped he was scared. I hoped he understood even just a little bit what he had put me through. But mostly I hoped he knew his lies were over. The game was finished. And he had lost. Claudia Winters arrived at Imani's apartment 3 days later carrying 2 briefcases and an intensity that made me sit up straighter. She wore a sharp maroon suit that screamed competence and no nonsense. Mrs. Reynolds, I've reviewed your case. What your husband did to you is beyond unconscionable. I want to represent you in both the divorce and the civil suit. We're going to make him pay for every single thing he did. I just want justice, I said. You'll have justice and compensation. By the time we're done, Derek Reynolds will wish he'd never heard your name. We spent 6 hours going through everything. My nursing career I abandoned. The 4 years of care. The financial losses. The emotional trauma. Every detail documented, every loss calculated. Your case is worth easily $2 million in damages, Claudia said. Lost wages, pain and suffering, emotional distress, theft of services. We're going to pursue maximum compensation. I don't care about the money, I said, though that wasn't entirely true. The money represented validation. Proof that what he did to me mattered. The money is how we make him understand the cost of what he did. It's quantifiable justice. She filed the divorce petition that week. Grounds: fraud, adultery, and abuse. I filed for full dissolution of the marriage with no financial obligations to Derek. I wanted nothing from him except acknowledgement of what he had done. The criminal trial was scheduled for 6 months out, but the evidence kept growing. Detective Morrison called weekly with updates. Each one revealed new layers of Derek's deception. Week 1, they found a second apartment Derek had rented in Simone's name. He went there when I thought he was at therapy appointments. They had been living a complete parallel life. Week 2, bank records showed Derek had taken out a credit card in my name without my knowledge. He had run up $15,000 in charges before I discovered it during the investigation. Week 3, they found emails between Derek and Simone from before his accident. They had been planning the fraud for months, waiting for the right opportunity. The construction accident wasn't even real. Derek had staged it. That last revelation broke something in me. The accident wasn't real. He had never been injured. He had staged a fall, convinced doctors he was hurt, and set up 4 years of fraud from the very beginning. How? I asked Detective Morrison. How did he fake the initial injury? He researched spinal injuries extensively. Knew what responses would indicate paralysis. When he fell, at the construction site, he was careful to land in a way that looked dramatic but caused no real damage. Then he gave the right responses during medical exams. The initial MRI showed some disc compression, which can happen from impact even without nerve damage. He used that as cover. So he was never hurt at all? According to the medical experts we've consulted, no. He may have had some bruising from the fall, but nothing that would cause paralysis. He fooled everyone. I thought about the weeks after his accident. The hospital stay. The rehab. My devastation and fear. All of it theater. Derek performing for an audience, setting up his con. What about the insurance money? I asked. He collected approximately $60,000 in disability payments over 4 years. That's fraud. The insurance company is pressing charges separately. The criminal case against Derek grew stronger every day. But the personal devastation grew with it. Each new revelation showed how calculated his cruelty had been. This wasn't a man who made a mistake. This was a man who systematically destroyed his wife's life for personal gain. Claudia prepared me for Derek's defense strategy. He's going to claim you were abusive. That he stayed in the wheelchair out of fear. That everything was your fault. Let him try. The evidence says otherwise. He'll also try to claim the affair was because you were cold and distant. He'll paint himself as the victim. I was cold and distant because I was exhausted from caring for a man who was lying to me. Exactly. We'll destroy that narrative. The prosecution offered Derek a plea deal in month 3. Plead guilty to fraud and theft, serve 8 years, pay full restitution. He refused. He wanted to go to trial, convinced he could win sympathy from a jury. His lawyer was a slick downtown attorney named Richard Hunt. He visited me once, trying to negotiate. Mrs. Reynolds, my client is willing to accept a divorce with shared assets and reduced charges if you agree not to pursue the civil suit. No. Mrs. Reynolds, be reasonable. A trial will be expensive and emotionally draining. You could put this behind you. No. I want everyone to know what he did. I want it on public record. I want him held accountable. No deals. Hunt left frustrated. Good. Let him be frustrated. Let Derek panic. Let them both understand they weren't controlling this narrative anymore. The media picked up the story in month 4. Local man accused of faking paralysis for 4 years while wife provided care. It went viral. News stations, newspapers, online publications. Everyone wanted the story. I gave one interview to a local investigative journalist named Patricia Chin. She was fair, thorough, and angry on my behalf. Why are you speaking out? She asked. Because other people need to know this can happen. Caregivers need to trust their instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. And people who commit this kind of fraud need to know there are consequences. The interview aired during prime time. My phone exploded. Supportive messages from strangers. Offers of help. People sharing their own stories of betrayal and fraud. I had become accidentally famous for the worst reason possible. But it felt good to be believed. To have people see my truth and validate it. Derek's family reached out through his lawyer. His mother wanted to talk to me. I refused. She called Imani instead. Please tell Natasha I'm so sorry, Mrs. Reynolds said, crying. I had no idea Derek was doing this. I thought he was really hurt. I can't believe my son would do something so cruel. Tell her yourself, Imani said coldly. She doesn't want to talk to you. I didn't blame Derek's mother, but I couldn't face her. She represented a family I had thought I belonged to. A family that never really existed. Tony called me directly. Derek's brother, the one who had been there from the beginning. Natasha, I need you to know I had no idea. I swear to you I had no idea. Did you ever suspect? I asked. Silence. Then, maybe. Once or twice something seemed off. But I couldn't believe Derek would do that. I talked myself out of it. You should have talked to me. I know. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. He testified for the prosecution. Told the court about moments where Derek seemed too capable, too strong. Small things Tony had noticed but dismissed. His testimony helped establish the pattern of deception. Simone pled guilty in month 5. Her deal, 3 years in prison in exchange for full testimony against Derek. She had to detail everything. The affair, the planning, the execution of the fraud. All of it on record. I watched her sentencing from the gallery. She cried as the judge pronounced her sentence. Apologized to me directly. Mrs. Reynolds, I'm so sorry for what I did. I was wrong. I hurt you terribly. I have to live with that forever. I said nothing. Her apology meant nothing to me. Derek's trial started in month 6. The prosecution called witness after witness. Doctors who explained how Derek had faked his symptoms. Therapists who testified about his physical capabilities. Financial experts who detailed the fraud. Detective Morrison who presented all the evidence. And me. I testified for 3 hours. Told the jury everything. The care I provided. The life I sacrificed. The trust one gave. The lies I believed. I looked at Derek the entire time I spoke, forcing him to face me. He looked away. The prosecution played security footage of Derek walking. Videos of him with Simone. Text messages planning their escape. The evidence was overwhelming. Derek's defense tried to paint me as controlling and abusive. Called a relationship expert, who had never met either of us, to talk about how caregiving can lead to power imbalances. Suggested I had driven Derek to desperate measures. The jury looked skeptical. Derek took the stand in his own defense. Big mistake. I never meant to hurt Natasha, he said, his voice trembling with practiced emotion. I was trapped. She made me feel worthless. I couldn't leave because I had nowhere to go. The paralysis was my only escape. Mr. Reynolds, the prosecutor asked during cross-examination, you testified that you felt trapped and worthless. Yet you were conducting an affair, renting a second apartment, stealing money, and planning to abandon your wife. Does that sound like someone who felt trapped? Derek stammered. It's complicated. Is it complicated, or is it that you're a liar who systematically abused your wife's trust for financial gain? Objection, his lawyer called. Sustained. But the damage was done. The jury saw Derek for what he was. A calculating fraud with no remorse. The prosecution's closing argument was devastating. Ladies and gentlemen, this case is about cruelty. Systematic, intentional cruelty. Derek Reynolds watched his wife sacrifice everything for him. Her career, her health, her happiness, her future. He watched her care for him with love and dedication. And he felt nothing. He used her. He stole from her. He betrayed her in every possible way. This isn't a complicated case. This is evil, pure and simple. Find him guilty. Make him pay for what he did. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. Guilty on all counts. The day of Derek's sentencing, I wore a blue dress. Bright, confident blue. The color of the woman Derek had chosen over me. But I wasn't that woman anymore. I was someone new. Someone stronger. The courtroom was packed. Media, supporters, curious onlookers. Everyone wanted to witness justice being served. Imani sat beside me holding my hand. Claudia sat at the prosecution table, ready to deliver her victim impact statement on my behalf. Derek was brought in wearing an orange jumpsuit, handcuffs, and a defeated expression. He looked smaller somehow. Less than he had been. Judge Williams was a stern woman in her 60s who had no patience for liars. She reviewed the case file with a disgusted expression. Mr. Reynolds, I have presided over many cases in my career. Theft, assault, even murder. But what you did to your wife is among the most cruel acts I have encountered. You systematically destroyed a woman who loved you. You stole years of her life. You betrayed every vow you made. The evidence against you is overwhelming. The jury's verdict was correct. She asked if I wanted to speak. I stood, my legs steady despite my racing heart. Your Honor, for 4 years I believed I was honoring my marriage vows. For better or worse, in sickness and in health. I gave Derek everything I had. My career, my savings, my health, my happiness. I did it because I loved him and because I believed marriage meant something. He taught me it meant nothing to him. He stole 4 years of my life. Years I will never get back. He stole my trust in people. He stole my faith in love. He stole my sense of self. I don't know if I'll ever fully recover from what he did. But I know this, I survived. I'm standing here today stronger than I was, ready to rebuild my life. He's standing there, exposed as the fraud he is. That's my justice. I asked the court to impose the maximum sentence allowed by law. I sat down. The courtroom was silent. Judge Williams nodded. Mr. Reynolds, you are sentenced to 8 years in state prison for fraud, grand theft, and spousal abuse. You will pay full restitution to Mrs. Reynolds for all financial losses, totaling $347,000. You will pay an additional $200,000 in punitive damages. You are ordered to have no contact with Mrs. Reynolds for the rest of your life. This court finds your actions reprehensible and your lack of remorse disturbing. I hope you use your time in prison to reflect on the devastation you caused. 8 years. Not enough, but something. Derek's face crumbled. Reality finally hitting him. They let him out. He tried to look at me one last time. I looked away. He didn't deserve even that. Outside the courtroom, reporters swarmed. I gave a brief statement. Justice was served today. But beyond my personal case, I want other caregivers to know. Trust your instincts. Something feels wrong, investigate. Don't let guilt or love blind you to reality. And to anyone considering this kind of fraud, you will be caught. You will face consequences. What you do in darkness will come to light. The statement went viral. Within days, I received messages from other caregivers who had similar suspicions about their loved ones. Some investigated and found fraud. Some investigated and found their suspicions were unfounded, but at least they knew. My story was helping people. That felt like redemption. Claudia moved forward with the civil suit immediately. With criminal convictions, the civil case was straightforward. Derek's court-appointed lawyer tried to negotiate, but I refused all deals. We want every penny, Claudia told them, plus punitive damages, plus legal fees. Mrs. Reynolds is not interested in mercy. The civil trial was quick. 1 week, same evidence as the criminal trial. The jury awarded me everything I asked for. $347,000 in direct damages. $200,000 in punitive damages. $100,000 for emotional distress. $647,000 total. Derek had no money to pay it. His wages would be garnished for the rest of his life. He would never be free of what he owed me. That felt appropriate. But money wasn't my real revenge. My real revenge was public. I wrote a blog post detailing everything. Every moment of the 4 years. Every lie Derek told. Every doubt I had. Every piece of evidence that proved his fraud. I held nothing back. The post went viral. Over 1 million views in the first week. News outlets picked it up. Derek's face was everywhere, identified as the man who faked paralysis. His name became synonymous with betrayal. I received interview requests from major media. Morning shows, podcasts, documentaries. I accepted some, declined others. I controlled the narrative now. Not Derek. Not his lawyers. Me. One documentary team spent 3 months following me. They interviewed Detective Morrison, Claudia, Imani, my old co-workers. They obtained footage from the investigation. They created a comprehensive look at Derek's fraud and my survival. Stolen Years, the Natasha Reynolds story, premiered at a film festival and won Best Documentary Feature. It was bought by a streaming service and watched by millions. Derek's cruelty was documented forever. But the best revenge was personal. I returned to nursing. After 4 years away, I needed retraining and recertification. Imani supported me financially while I studied. 6 months later, I passed my boards and got hired at Memorial Hospital, the same hospital where this nightmare began. I specialized in rehabilitative care. Working with actual spinal injury patients. Giving them real care, real support, real compassion. Everything Derek had stolen from me, I gave to people who actually needed it. One of my first patients was a 28-year-old man named Jerome. Real paralysis from a car accident. I helped him through the worst days, the despair and grief. I knew what real suffering looked like now. I knew the difference between a patient who needed help and a fraud who wanted attention. Jerome recovered partial function after intense therapy. He walked for the first time in 9 months on a Tuesday afternoon. I cried watching him. These were the moments Derek had stolen from me. These were the rewards of real caregiving that he had perverted. I also started a foundation. Trust Your Instincts, Caregiver Fraud Prevention. We educated caregivers about warning signs of fraud. Provided resources for investigating suspicions. Offered financial assistance to caregivers who discovered they had been deceived. The foundation raised $200,000 in the first year. We helped 17 caregivers uncover fraud. We prevented countless others from falling into the trap I had. That felt like real justice. Turning my trauma into something that helped others. Derek tried to contact me from prison. Letters claiming he was sorry, that he loved me, that he had made a terrible mistake. I returned every letter unopened. He tried calling. I blocked the number. He tried having his mother contact me. I blocked her too. He had 8 years in prison to think about what he did. I had the rest of my life to live without him. That was the real victory. 1 year after his sentencing, I received a message from Simone. She had been released on parole for good behavior. Mrs. Reynolds, I know you don't want to hear from me, but I need you to know I'm sorry. Really truly sorry. What we did to you was evil. I have to live with that forever. I've spent every day since thinking about how to make amends. I'm working with a therapist. I'm volunteering with domestic abuse survivors. I'm trying to be better. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know I see what I did wrong. I didn't respond. Her guilt wasn't my problem. Her redemption wasn't my responsibility. She got 3 years in prison. That was her consequence. How she lived with it was her burden. But sometimes I thought about her. About how Derek had manipulated her too. Convinced her I was the villain. Used her like he used everyone. She was culpable, yes. But she was also a victim of Derek's lies. I never contacted her. But I stopped hating her. That felt like healing. Derek's family reached out occasionally. His mother sent holiday cards. Tony texted every few months. I responded politely but briefly. They weren't responsible for Derek's choices. But they were reminders of a life I wanted to forget. The legal battles were over. The sentences served. The money awarded. Derek was in prison. Simone was on parole. I had won everything I could win. But winning didn't heal everything. I still had nightmares. Still had moments of rage so intense I couldn't breathe. Still had days where I couldn't understand how someone I loved could do what Derek did. Therapy helped. I found a good trauma therapist who specialized in betrayal and abuse. We worked through my anger, my guilt, my grief. Slowly I started to feel human again. One day, about 18 months after Derek's sentencing, I realized I had gone a whole week without thinking about him. A whole week of my life that he didn't consume. That felt like a victory bigger than any courtroom win. I was taking my life back. Piece by piece, day by day. Derek had stolen 4 years. But he wouldn't steal one more moment. I wouldn't let him. That was my revenge. Living well. Being happy. Moving forward. Leaving him in the past where he belonged. Because the best revenge isn't destroying your enemy. It's building a life so good they become irrelevant. And Derek Reynolds was becoming irrelevant. Finally. 2 years after Derek's sentencing, I was barely recognizable from the woman who had wheeled him into that doctor's office. I looked in the mirror one morning and saw someone I liked. My natural curls were healthy again, no longer pulled back in that severe bun. My skin glowed with health. My eyes were clear. I was wearing a green dress, ready for work at Memorial Hospital. I had been promoted to senior rehabilitative nurse 3 months earlier. My life was full again, but in good ways. Ways I controlled. The foundation was thriving. We had helped 42 caregivers uncover fraud in the past year. Provided financial assistance to 18 others. Our educational programs were being adopted by hospitals nationwide. My trauma had become something meaningful. I had reconnected with old friends. Started running 5 Burmese chats again. Read books just for pleasure. Did things for myself without guilt. Slowly, painfully, joyfully, I had rebuilt the person Derek had tried to destroy. But I was still alone. Trust didn't come easy after what Derek did. Dating felt impossible. How could I let someone close enough to hurt me again? You can't let him win by staying isolated, Imani said one Sunday over brunch. Living alone forever because of what he did means he still controls your life. I'm not ready. I'm not saying get married tomorrow. I'm saying be open to possibilities. I tried. Downloaded dating apps. Went on a few dates. They were fine. Nice men, normal conversations. But I couldn't feel anything. The wall Derek built around my heart was too thick to penetrate. Until I met Jerome Wilson. I had been his nurse 2 years earlier, helped him through his recovery from actual spinal injury. He had regained about 60% function, could walk with assistance. We had stayed in touch occasionally, professional check-ins about his progress. He was at the hospital for a follow-up appointment on a Tuesday in October. We ran into each other in the lobby. Nurse Reynolds, he said, smiling. Good to see you. Jerome. How are you doing? Really good. I'm back at work part-time. Physical therapy is going well. I owe a lot of it to you. We talked for a few minutes. Easy conversation, comfortable. He asked if I wanted to grab coffee sometime just as friends. 2 people who had been through hard times, supporting each other. I almost said no. Then I thought about Imani's words. About not letting Derek win. Sure. Coffee sounds good. We met the following Saturday at a cafe near the hospital. Talked for 3 hours. About his recovery, about my foundation, about life and resilience. He made me laugh. I hadn't laughed like that in years. Can I be honest? Jerome said. I read about what happened to you. The documentary, the articles. I can't imagine going through that. I don't like to talk about it much, I said carefully. I'm not asking you to. I just wanted you to know I think you're incredibly strong. What you turned that trauma into, how you help others, it's inspiring. We started meeting regularly. Coffee turned into lunches. Lunches turned into dinners. Dinners turned into long walks and easy silences. Jerome didn't push. He understood boundaries. He had been through trauma too, understood how it shaped you. 6 months into our friendship, he asked me on an actual date. Not as friends. As something more. If you're ready. If you're not, that's okay too. I was terrified. But I was also tired of being afraid. Okay. Yes. Let's try. We took it slow. Painfully slow. He let me set the pace. Never pushed, never pressured. He was patient with my trust issues, my panic attacks, my moments of irrational fear. I'm a lot of work, I told him one night. Damaged goods. You're not damaged. You survived something terrible. That's different. And you're worth the work. I cried. Ugly, healing tears. He held me while I fell apart, then helped me put myself back together. 1 year into our relationship, Jerome asked me to move in with him. I said yes. Leaving the apartment where Derek had performed his fraud felt like shedding his skin. The new place had no memories of those years. Just us starting fresh. Derek tried to contact me from prison. Letters saying he had heard I was dating someone, asking if I was happy, claiming he was glad for me. I returned them unopened like all the others. His opinion on my life was irrelevant. The foundation expanded. We opened a second office in another city. Hired staff. Created a hotline for caregivers who needed support. My story had grown into something bigger than me, helping people I would never meet. I gave a TED Talk about caregiver fraud and trusting instincts. It was viewed over 5 million times. Universities used it in their nursing programs. Medical schools incorporated our educational materials. Real change was happening because I refused to stay silent. 3 years after Derek's sentencing, Jerome proposed. We were at the beach watching the sunset. He knelt in the sand with a simple ring. Natasha, I know marriage is complicated for you. I know you have every reason not to trust it. But I'm not Derek. I see you, I value you, I respect you. I want to spend my life proving that good men exist. Will you marry me? I thought about the woman who married Derek 6 years earlier. Young, naive, trusting. She wouldn't recognize the woman I had become. Stronger, wiser, scarred but standing. Yes, but I need time. A long engagement. Therapy together. I need to be sure. Take all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere. We spent the next year in couples therapy, building a foundation based on honesty and communication. Learning each other's trauma responses. Creating boundaries and safe spaces. This relationship was nothing like my marriage to Derek. It was intentional, careful, real. We married on a Saturday in spring. Small ceremony, close friends and family. Imani was my maid of honor, wearing a beautiful maroon dress. I wore blue. Bright, confident, beautiful blue. The color of the woman I had become. Derek was released on parole after serving 6 years of his 8-year sentence. I found out through a victim notification system. Part of me panicked. What if he tried to contact me? What if he showed up? But he didn't. His parole conditions prohibited contact. If he violated them, he would go back to prison. I had a restraining order. I was protected. And more importantly, I was no longer afraid of him. He was just a man who had hurt me. Not a monster. Not invincible. Just a pathetic fraud who had lost everything while I had gained it back. My life was full in ways I couldn't have imagined during those dark 4 years. I had a career I loved. A foundation making real change. A husband who cherished me. Friends who supported me. Happiness that was earned, not given. Sometimes I thought about the woman in the mirror from that doctor's office. Hollow, exhausted, gray with despair. I wanted to tell her it would be okay. That she would survive this. That she would thrive. But she wouldn't have believed me. She needed to walk the path herself. On the 5-year anniversary of Derek's arrest, I wrote a final blog post. 5 years ago, my life shattered when I learned the truth about my husband's deception. 4 years of care, sacrifice, and love had been given to a lie. I was broken, devastated, lost. Today, I'm writing this from my home office, planning expansion for a foundation that has helped over 200 families. I'm married to a man who sees me as an equal partner. I'm surrounded by people who love and support me. I'm happy. Derek Reynolds stole 4 years of my life. But he couldn't steal my future. I took that back myself. To anyone reading this who is going through betrayal, fraud, abuse, you will survive this. It won't be easy. It won't be quick. But you will survive. You will heal. You will find joy again. Don't let your pain define you. Let your resilience define you. This is my final post about Derek. I'm done giving him space in my story. The chapters about him are closed. The rest of the book is about me, my family, my work, my happiness. I'm taking back my narrative. All of it. And I'm writing an ending so beautiful he becomes irrelevant. The post was shared thousands of times. But I didn't care about that anymore. I didn't need validation from strangers. I had validation from myself. I was enough. I had always been enough. Derek's lies couldn't change that. Jerome read the post and kissed me. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of me too. We sat on our porch watching the sunset. I thought about the woman I used to be. The woman who gave everything to someone who deserved nothing. The woman who lost herself in sacrifice. She was gone. In her place was someone stronger. Someone who knew her worth. Someone who refused to be diminished. Derek Reynolds had tried to destroy me. Instead, he had forged me into steel. That was the real ending. Not his prison sentence. Not the money. Not the public exposure. The real ending was me, happy and whole, living a life he could never touch again. I had won. Not by destroying him, though the justice system had done that well enough. I had won by becoming someone better than I was before. Someone who couldn't be broken again. The sun set over our new home, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Beautiful and bright like my future. Derek was in the past. I was in the present, building toward a future he had no part in. And that, finally, was enough.